All right, welcome to the show, everybody. This is For Liberty. I am your host, Nick, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com and revolution.radio. You can also find us on iTunes. And what's the other one? We do have another place that we're played on, Zeno.fm. You can find us on there, too. And be sure to go to the website, get into the chat room, talk with everybody in the chat room. Be sure to go to the top of the page and hit the donation button. Help keep us on the air. We are 100% listener supported. So if you got some change burning a hole in your pocket, please send it our way. Remember, mainstream media is not telling you the truth. Or in the case of my guest tonight, just kind of ignoring them altogether, it seems like. I have I have a guest tonight. His name is David Myers, who I met here in Wisconsin at the Wapaka County Second Amendment Preservation Group when we all went down to the Wapaka County offices and got the county to pass a resolution to make Wapaka a Second Amendment sanctuary. And the same thing happened that night in Portage County, which is right next door, a lot more liberal. So welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay, so give us just a little background on like who you are and how all of this actually got started.
My background is in the woodworking business, renovating churches. But this issue became very heated last year with all the rioting and such going on around the country. And I would sit up at night and watch this stuff on the West Coast. I couldn't believe what was going on out there.
Oh, believe I had to live through it. I had to live through it. Trust me.
Yeah, and then the worst thing is you watch the police have to just stand down and let it happen. That's where my fear and mistrust came. You know, when you see policemen being abused and basically tortured the way they were.
Right.
It was. And then the local and state, they did nothing to help these. I actually witnessed it personally. It was down in Madison and southern part of the state where I actually worked as a security for David Clark, sheriff, and to watch how BLM could put their cars across the road and the police had to stand and guard them, make sure they stayed there. Wow. So you see things like that, and it just, but the police were thankful that we were there because they weren't going to do any security, making it secure for David Clark. But to see that type of stuff going on, where they just had to let it happen because they were somebody else was in control. The police were powerless, basically. And
right? So, were they given a stand down order for a lot of things?
Yeah. I was talking to the Proud Boys who were down there, and them guys are some pretty good sized guys. I probably shouldn't have been talking to them and telling them, "Can't you push those cars out of here?" There was snow on the ground and ice. I says, "I think you guys can move that." Well, the police were guarding those cars.
Right.
They were told to leave them alone.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing happen in Los Angeles when the politicians, the local politicians and city council and whatever, don't have an issue of taking away your right to defend yourself, but they don't also have a problem of having the police being used as private security for themselves. Yep. So where did Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say. So how did you get started with the Second Amendment preservation?
Well, when the Biden regime came in, and they started their attacks. Well, they started it before the election, talking about what they were going to do for gun rights and stuff. And that was a big thing. And what got me started, then I started looking made national news. Newton County, Missouri, Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Right.
Are you familiar with that one? They really, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not familiar with that one exactly, but I know that there's been pushes all over the country for the counties to enact Second Amendment. I mean, they figure if you can enact a sanctuary city for illegal aliens, why, how come we can't have sanctuary counties for our constitutional rights?
Yeah. Well, Newton County, Missouri, it was very strong, and it made national news where it talked about the sheriff of the county can arrest federal agents if they come in and try to do something, which very strong language. And that I basically took the Newton County, Missouri Preservation Act and just rewrote it with Waupaca County, Wisconsin in it. And that's what we started with. And I think that's what really got people stirred in the county. Because one day I sat down with David Weddy. I don't know if you ever met him, or he helped get us started there. And I said, Dave, what are we going to do? How can we do this in Waupaca County? He says, first we got to get the people excited, build some enthusiasm. And so I rewrote the Newton County, Waupaca County. Then I started a Facebook page on February 16th. And then it was called Waupaca County Second Amendment Preservation. And
right.
And if you've been following some of the maps and stuff, at that time there were 4 states that were sanctuary states, and about 30% of the counties that were sanctuary counties. And so that really, I really didn't know these facts. I didn't know what counties in Wisconsin were sanctuary. I didn't even know about it. I just thought we want to do it here. So a lot of this information came later on, but it was. And one main thing, I don't know if you want to get into that, one main thing we started with the idea, with the thinking that it's not political, it's constitutional.
Right.
And I think it drew a lot of people. We kept politics off our Facebook page. It's a very difficult thing to do. I'm very conservative, but to keep people from just tearing each other apart like they do on regular Facebook pages.
Yep.
And so I think people took a real liking to that fact, that we're just kind of a debate about the Second Amendment. And and it grew fast,
Right.
That in 5 months we had 3,600 members, and it just went beyond what I was capable of really handling, but I kind of grew into it. So
right, and it's really awesome to me is that excuse me, that we have had some success in it, because we did get the Waupaca County to sign on. And Portage next door, as I said, is more liberal than here, and they passed it.
Yeah, but they took the constitutional route, more constitutional.
Right.
Was the Second Amendment's in the Constitution. So, and we kind of went through that. We kind of went through that also here, because some of the board members, on the Republican side, they tried it 18 months ago. I think it was about that time. They tried it once here. The Republican Party was pushing it. They had 3 people to show up to back the resolution, and it just fizzled out, and they ignored it. But
I don't remember how I found this. It popped up in my news feed and on Facebook. I don't really use it at Facebook as much as I used to, because I kept getting kicked off of it all the time. But I wouldn't have even known about it, and as soon as I saw it, it was like, okay, we're going to be meeting down at the Waupaca County building. It's like, I'm there. I'm going to be there. So I made a point of showing up and speaking. And
I don't even remember you.
What's that?
I don't even remember you.
I'm the guy with the long hair.
Okay.
The guy with the long hair, and I wear a lot of black. Let's put it that way. But
okay.
But I was actually kind of surprised, because everybody says that doing anything political about supporting the Second Amendment it's always controversial. That's the key word that you hear a lot of these news media talking heads. It's controversial for this, it's controversial for that, and it's really not. I mean, I don't understand why people consider the Constitution controversial at all, but the absolute silence from the mainstream media was deafening. Even the local Wisconsin morning show guy, Regular Joe, he didn't even talk about it. And I heard somebody go on his show and a phone call in and say, "Hey, we passed this in Wapaka," and he's like, "Yeah, that's really great," and that was the end of it.
Yeah, that's what we got with the Wapaka. What was the name? Wapaka County Post.
Mm-hmm.
The Mr. Cloud over there. I emailed him at least twice, and I think somebody else talked to him about it while we were having our rallies and such.
Mm-hmm.
And we never got a response. Even the last time where they voted on it and passed it, I was told that there was going to be a reporter there, and we get some interviews and stuff. I wanted it would have helped us build our numbers, I think, even greater if we would have had some kind of coverage. But they just kind of refused. They refused to even acknowledge that anything was going on. That was one of the really discouraging things that we had. We got no coverage at all. Even if it would have been bad coverage, if it would have been negative, that could have worked too.
Right.
But that never happened. And
I was going to say, it seems like a lot of the this is actually a very positive thing. I always look at it as a positive thing, and the mainstream, they seem to always ignore the positive aspects of firearms and firearm ownership. And yet, if there's a shooting or if they can stroke this to be an anti-Second Amendment story, they'll be all over it 24/7. And that's why I always sign on when I say the mainstream media doesn't tell the truth, because they really don't. They omit everything. I mean, like I said, they ignored this. This is something we should have the whole state on. This is something every state should be getting on.
Yeah. Well, right now there's like 10 states. There's 10 states that are sanctuary, and like 50%. The last figures I seen was 56% of the counties are sanctuary in the United States. Like when we started, it was 30%. Now it's like 56%, and it's a movement that's just, like you say, not being covered.
Yeah, it doesn't fit the narrative. That's the problem. It doesn't fit the mainstream narrative. But here's the thing: when we passed the resolution, and that's all great and everything. What exactly does it do for the county? I mean, this is what people are going to be asking. What exactly does it do to the county? What enforcement aspect does it have? If
it kind of comes down to the sheriff. If the sheriff backs it, our sheriff is very good with it. He's as far as I know, he's a hunter. I never got to talk to him. I met him at the last meeting. I shook his hand and thanked him. But so he's been behind it from the beginning, but he just never really was out forward, like up in Shawano County. Sheriff Beaver, I think is Beaver. He was really out front on it. He was kind of pushing it up there.
Okay.
But
I know. I've met the Wapaka Sheriff, Sheriff Wills. I met him when he was running for sheriff. I got the chance to speak to him, and he was actually really, really good. I actually liked him. I like him. Unlike the sheriffs that we keep getting in Los Angeles. But no, Wills is very good. He when they did a Black Lives Matter march down in Wapaka, and Antifa, of course, they showed up and were about to cause a lot of trouble. Well, there was a bunch of business owners down there and a bunch of other people knowing what Black Lives Matter and Antifa do when they show up in places. They were all there armed, every single one of them.
Yeah, and the other group was there they were the original 3%ers. A lot of the members were out there.
Right.
And they've changed name and a lot of leadership. They're now the Midwest SRT, Special Response Team.
Right. Uh-huh.
And it's not just a militia. It's not a militia. I should say that. They're very community based. They work within law enforcement. Some of the guys are involved in law enforcement. They know the ins and outs. And that's where I've worked with them. So that's what I probably shouldn't say more.
I know people who are involved in them. I've actually applied to be part of their group too, because I think what they're doing is important. But
Yeah.
what I thought was
Well,
funny what I thought was funny in Wapaka was when Antifa showed up, and they saw all the citizens there armed. They asked, they went to the sheriff and they said, "Aren't you going to do something about this?" And he went, "What? What am I? What do you want me to? What am I going to do?"
Yeah, yeah.
So,
They were working with the sheriff. The sheriff knew they were there, and they know why they were there. And so it was, it's very interesting to be involved in something like that, because they do more. They do search and rescue. We've been involved in that, and cleanup. Disaster cleanup. They've helped in that. So it's just not armed guys running around looking for for a battle.
It's not some guy who thinks he's Rambo running through the woods.
Yeah. There's enough of them out there that'll give it a bad name, that have given the word militia a bad name. It's
right.
Well,
yeah, they turned them into a bad word a long time ago. Through mainstream propaganda once again.
I know you're not old enough to remember the Posse Comitatus up in Tigerton, are you?
Actually, I am, because I have family members who are part of it.
Okay. Yeah, because I knew the main guy, Jim Wickstrom. I worked with him for over a year, and I started learning a little bit from him, mistrust of the government and stuff. But then I started getting into the biblical sense. I was doing a Bible study at that time, and I was talking to him about it, and I started finding out what he was really all about.
Right.
Singing, and that's what gave militia a bad term. And I think they changed something in the Constitution in Wisconsin at that time, because they basically formed their own county up there. They believe that's what they did, and that's what got them in trouble.
Right.
And so, but I'm rambling with. Go ahead.
So now also, though, I heard that there's a push down in Madison to get Wisconsin to become a Second Amendment sanctuary state.
Yes.
Which I think is going to be a lot harder given who we have sitting on the throne in Wisconsin at the moment, or at least he thinks he's sitting on the throne.
Well, so are you following that at all? Some of the meetings?
I catch bits and pieces of it, but I don't get enough information on a regular basis to be in tune.
I kind of fell into that. Becky over in Portage County sent me a message the night before that there was going to be a speech or something about the Second Amendment behind the Capitol. I went down there, and I thought, well, I'll go listen to speeches, and all what was speeches were going on was about the vote integrity going on. And so I finished listening to that. They didn't say anything about the Second Amendment. No, she says, no, there's a board meeting inside the Capitol. And so I knew nothing about this. And we went in there, and I sat down with Becky, and she says, you want to speak? I said, I have nothing written down, and other guys had stuff written down, and all I had was a business card to write on, and that was my speech. But it came natural, because we've been going through these facts and figures so much, and I think they were impressed with the numbers that our group, how the 3,500 that we had at the time, but anyhow, that was great. The Republicans were all for it on that board, and then it went to the next board meeting, and they voted for it. That it was going to go to the House, the Assembly,
mm-hmm.
And then the next meeting was coming up tonight. Today it was supposed to be for the Senate to start their process on their bill, SB 314, I believe it is.
Okay.
And all of a sudden I got the message. I gave you Thomas Leager from the Wisconsin Gun Owners, and he said they're putting a hold on it. They're putting a hold on it. That they're not going to be pushing that anymore, because they know they're going to lose. I said they're going to lose. The Senate has, like 60-40. They got the Senate, I think, is 21-13, 21 Republicans.
Right.
Assembly is 60-38. What are they going to lose? I knew, we knew that Evers, he was going to veto it. But we could always work on some of the people, to build some numbers up in their areas to, the ones that we needed to change their mind to have a override the veto. But
and just in case anybody in the audience doesn't know who Evers is, that's Wisconsin's governor.
Yeah. So anyhow, that's how that all came about, and it's very disappointing.
Well, I still don't understand how they thought they would lose this.
That was the comment. They said the sanctuary, it wasn't going to be a priority. The Second Amendment sanctuary is not a priority because it will not pass. So that's telling me that there were Republicans that were not going to pass it. So there's a bigger trouble down there than just Evers. What I'm reading from that.
Yeah, believe me, I have issues with some of these people in the state legislature too. I've had the discussion with quite a few people, and we know who they are.
Yeah.
But because I remember, this was a while back. They had the idea of constitutional carry coming up in Wisconsin, and one of my family members, he went there and spoke, and I don't remember who the state senator was that he was speaking in front of, but she was against it until he spoke. Yeah, because he was giving her some information that came right out of some historical book that he had read just recently. And he turned her around. He got her, said, yes, I'm going to vote for it. And then, unfortunately, the NRA came in and pooched the entire deal. I don't know how they did it, because when I watched the video, the two parts that got cut off were his speech and the NRA. Both of them disappeared off the video.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the issue was, but they killed constitutional carry in Wisconsin over that. Yeah,
I got kind of a feeling, the NRA is really too political. I don't know if I want to say political, but they're looked at as political. Right wing.
Yeah.
But that's.
I think over a period of time they shot themselves in the foot quite too many times, and then this whole issue with Wayne LaPierre, who's the exec vice president, some of the mishandling of the money that happened in there, and they just kind of gave themselves a really, not even just from what the mainstream media has been saying about them, but they kind of did themselves in as far as their publicity goes.
Yeah.
But there's always Gun Owners of America, which I like a lot better myself. And so
because I know that I've talked about that Thomas Leaguer, Wisconsin gun owner. I think he's got like 30,000 followers on his Facebook page anyhow, but he can't get it out himself. I think somebody else is running, administrating it for him. But he. So I just looking. There's other groups that have been. I talked to a lady today that she wants to try to get us more statewide what we did up here in Waupaca County, and so I'm going to be talking with her a little bit. She's out of the Milwaukee area, and so it's interesting. People just have to come together. There's so many little groups that's kind of what's building this whole thing. Each county kind of doing it on their own. Well, there's not one big. Go ahead.
I was going to say, well, it's like they say, all politics is local.
Yeah. So. And I think with our numbers, I think we really, I don't want to say scared them into voting, because it was the final vote, 23-0, 23-0. So unanimous. There are 4 no-shows.
Right.
There are 4 no-shows. One of whom I know I've had information about, who has a federal firearms license for fully automatic weapons, and he was afraid. I think he was afraid to come and vote against it, because everybody people that vote for him would know that. And I think but then he was afraid to vote for it because, afraid, the feds are going to come after him. Well, who's going to be the first gun they're going to want to take from a civilian? Oh, fully automatic weapon, right?
Yeah.
They ain't gonna come after my semi-automatic first. They're gonna come after the guy with a fully automatic.
Right.
A real automatic. So.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, see, that's one of the things that I always end up saying. And it was really interesting when I heard Michael Bolden from the 10th Amendment Center. He actually moved from Wisconsin out to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I saw him at UCLA one time and kind of was like, why did you move to LA? And he's like, because I like my tyranny warm. But, and believe me, I didn't understand that until I moved to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But even he said that one of the worst laws ever passed in the United States was the Gun Control Act of National Firearms Act of 1934.
Yeah.
Which started the ball rolling. And I always tell people, show me one constitutional gun control law on the books. Well, this one, no, it's not. Where does it say in the Constitution then that's legal, that's lawful? It doesn't.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, is there is no such thing as an unlawful or as a constitutional gun control act. And they say, well, what if somebody uses a gun to commit murder? Well, then they committed murder.
Yeah, there's the law right there. They're breaking that law,
Right, exactly.
So he used to be able to buy. You used to able to buy Thompson machine guns right out of the Sears and Roebuck's catalog.
Oh my God! Yeah, when I went out to California the first time, when I was in the military, I could go into a gun shop out there and, hey, I'd like that shotgun. Here's your money. Here's your shotgun, and walk right out the store. No problems. But in the 90s, the politicians there all went far left, as far left as you can go, and California has not even circled the drain at this point. They're actually in the drain.
Yeah,
but,
that's.
Oh yeah, it's bad. It's like if they find out you're a gun owner, you've got a target on your back. They've done gun confiscation in California already. People don't seem to realize that. But I remember it from years ago because a California Highway Patrolman got caught up in it when he didn't turn his so-called assault rifle in, and they arrested him for it.
Yeah.
So getting on from there, because I got to bring this up. This has got to, as far as the Second Amendment is concerned, this has got to be the elephant in the room. David Chipman. David Chipman, who is the nominee to be the director of the ATF.
Oh, yeah.
And because I want to get your take on him. I already know what mine is. I've ripped that guy apart several times on this show. So what's your take on this guy?
He's a piece of work, isn't he? I don't know. He's a follower. Like what was his comment that he can't say what an assault weapon is? He's going to wait for the Congress to tell him.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't that basically it? Because I especially like Kennedy from Louisiana when he was grilling them. What is an assault weapon? Well, I gotta wait for the Congress to kind of tell me, and then he went on and he said, "No, you tell me personally what you think an assault weapon is."
Uh-huh.
And he just kept going on, and pretty soon Kennedy says, "I'm done." He says, "I'm not going to get any answers out of this guy."
Yeah,
I love.
I'm not going to give you my vote either, is what he said.
Yeah, but it's just a follower. He's waiting for somebody to tell him what the assault weapon's going to be, and then he'll go all ape on us.
Right. Well, here's what my take is on him. Is he's dangerous. He's very dangerous to the Second Amendment and the Constitution because he reminds me of what the ATF was back in the 90s. Yeah,
Ruby Ridge. He was involved in all that stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, it was. This is why he reminds me. Number one, he was lying the entire time during his congressional hearings. He knows what his own definition of an assault rifle is. He just didn't want to say it.
Yeah.
Everything else, too, that came out of his mouth. ATF was so bad in the 90s, they actually talked about dissolving the agency completely, but they didn't want to fire the agents. Well, they're well-trained, federal agents. We can side shift them over to the FBI, send some over to the CIA or whatever. None of the other agencies would take them because they were so corrupt, they didn't want them.
Yeah.
That's what David Chipman reminds me of.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of, if he gets in, I don't know what kind of regulations he's going to make, because they'll make their own regulations on how they do things. And, what's the ATF going to define an assault rifle as? They'll have their own definition. Yeah, he's dangerous to put into that position.
Yeah, that leads you into the idea of what we need to do as civilians to protect ourselves. I've talked forever on our Facebook page. We got to get this done, and then we got to get organized. Because I said they're going to come at you one at a time. The ATF will move in one at a time and pick you apart if you're not organized. If you don't have some kind of plan.
Right.
And a lot of people on there say, "Well, I'm going to protect my house. They come for mine. I'm going to, and they can take the gun out of my cold dead hand or whatever."
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: they will.
Yeah.
They absolutely will.
I insisted that we organized, and I really haven't made that move to really see what we got to do. We're trying to put a group, get a gathering together and talk about what we should be doing. And so I kind of got sidetracked on that Wisconsin state thing, and so I'm trying to focus now more locally. So, but that's
it's going to take, because like you said, they'll pick you off one by one.
Yeah.
And people won't, they'll get mad about it, but then they'll go, well, what are we supposed to do? Well, you, again, form your own groups, work with the local sheriff, make sure that they know they're on board with all of it too.
Yeah. We can't use the word militia anymore. So that's why I just say we have to organize. You can't start using militia on Facebook, and you're going to lose your Facebook page.
Yeah. See, the sheriff is got to be the go-to guy at this point.
Yeah.
There was an issue out, I think it was in New Mexico, where the Bureau of Land Management was really just fining this cattle rancher for letting his cattle run on the land, and they say you can't do that. And they actually started killing off his cattle or taking them off somewhere.
Bundy, wasn't his name Bundy?
No, this was before Bundy.
Okay.
And same issue, different person. But what happened was the guy went to the sheriff and complained and said, "Hey, look, you're the sheriff of the county. These guys are, they're doing all of this." And so the sheriff contacted at some point, the sheriff contacted the Bureau of Land Management and told them, "You don't be doing that anymore. Otherwise, I'm going to put you under arrest." And said, "Well, the Black Lives Matter, the Bureau of Land Management said, well, what happens if we show up with our SWAT team?" He goes, "I'll show up with mine, and we'll deal with it."
Okay. Yeah.
And the Bureau of Land Management backed off. So that's the power the sheriff has. I mean, the sheriff got a lot of grief from the city council, and he said, "So what? I'm the sheriff. I am the top law enforcement agent in the county."
Well, the significant thing about the county sheriff, he's the only elected law enforcement official in the country.
Uh-huh.
There is no other elected law enforcement. They're all appointed or hired or, I never realized that until I started studying on my on our Facebook page here. Yeah. And he's the only elected law enforcement in the country.
Yeah, and that gives him a lot of authority. A lot more authority than a lot of the others.
That's where the term power of the county came from.
Mm-hmm.
That's an old. It came from old England. They brought over here. That's where the word term posse comitatus comes from. all the power of the county. You know, the county had so much power when this country originally started, and it's kind of eroded away and ignored.
Well, they've eroded the states' rights too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I saw Donald Trump trying to get back into that at some point, but I think he was, again, being fed some wrong information, especially when that whole thing happened in Portland where they cut off part of the city. And that's when the sheriff should have got in there and said, look, you're just the mayor. I'm the sheriff. Get out of the way.
Yeah. He has the power. They have the power to do it, but I don't think they realize it or they don't want to accept it.
Well, I think a lot of it is some of them don't know. I mean, this goes with our politicians too. They don't know what their job is.
Yeah.
I was listening to the regular Joe show this morning, and he had on some lady who's a candidate for governor when Evers doesn't. Oh no, she's running for Senate. That's right, for Ron Johnson's seat. And she's a Democrat, and she didn't know a thing about what she was talking about. Nothing. And it's like, unfortunately, some of these people get elected to office. And, you know, we get bad sheriffs too. I mean, when I was in LA, I was heavily involved with the Republican Party there. And we had a meet because the other sheriff actually was up on criminal charges. And so they were going to have a special election, and we had a big meet the sheriffs. There were probably about 9 candidates. I don't remember the exact number, 7 or 9. And some of them were just so. I mean, they weren't terrible. There was one really terrible candidate who was an undersheriff, and he ended up going to prison anyway because he got busted in the whole scandal that happened in Los Angeles. But there was only one candidate there that actually knew what his job was supposed to be, and he didn't get elected.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that sheriff in Arizona. I forget his name.
Arpaio?
No.
Joseph Arpaio? Is that the one you're trying to find?
No. It's a different one. I'm going through our Facebook page trying to find it. It was an old, but he was teaching classes to sheriff's departments and stuff what their responsibility is, and he made I listened to his video, and he says, I have the ability to deputize everyone in this county if I need to. and he was the one that kind of pointed out that he's the only elected official in the country,
right?
Being a sheriff. But I don't know if I'm going to run across it. But it was. I'll have to look that up. But that's really interesting to sit and listen to him talk. And he actually runs classes. He has come to Wisconsin a few times, and we were kind of busy. I never got down to see him. He was in the southern part of the state. But I think about $1,800, you can get him to come, and he'll speak to your group. And
right.
I was kind of looking at that. I think I got kind of busy at one time, and it never panned out. But I'm still not. It's way early in our.
It's not that big of a deal. But because right now when Joe Biden kind of got selected, I'm not going to say elected because he wasn't.
No, he wasn't elected.
When he was put into office, let's put it that way. It was like everybody knew this was coming. This a major attack on the Second Amendment. I knew who Kamala Harris was already because I was in California when she was the Attorney General. She was an absolute nightmare. She was a disaster with the way she was handling things there. She's the one. There's a lot of other information about it, but. Things that she has done, but I do remember one where somebody filed for a concealed weapons permit. Now that's in California, that's almost impossible to get.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I've heard they're changing some of their rules, but in Los Angeles, but I doubt that very much. But there was a case that went up to the Supreme Court of California, because the guy filed for a CCW and was told that his reason that he wanted it wasn't good enough, because self-defense is not a reason, apparently. So he appealed it up. They got to the Supreme Court. They had a three-judge panel that said overturned that ruling and said, no, that's perfectly fine. That's the exact reason why you want it. And Kamala Harris, she was waiting there because I think she knew what was happening. She was in her office or wherever it was she was at, and she filed an injunction against it the very next day or very soon afterwards, and got it blocked, demanded that the entire Supreme Court of California rule on it, and it's either Supreme Court or the Ninth. And when they ruled on it, of course, they shot it down. No, self-defense is not a reason for owning CCW. So that's the kind of mentality. It's gone from me being able to go into a store, buy a shotgun, and walk out, to see, self-defense is not a reason to own a firearm or CCW at least. So that's the path that I'm afraid I'm watching. Don't want to see it happen here. That's one of the big reasons I left California. I don't want to see it happen here. And with Joe Biden in office, I don't want to see it happen nationally either.
No. But that's a lot of the counties, that movement, I don't think, I think eventually they should get the message, that something's going on in this country. What did the last figure I hear, like 20 million guns were sold. I forgot what the time span was, but it was just recently stated that. And so that, that's why we can't find ammunition.
Yeah, you can get the gun. I was going to say, you can get the guns, but getting the ammo is a little bit harder at this point.
Yeah.
The local store around here finally got some in, and they were limiting it to 2 boxes per person.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, but that's the way it goes.
Right. So, but I was right on the tip of my tongue, and I just forgot what I was just going to ask.
Okay.
Well, let's look at it this way. When we got midterms coming up this next year, because I have to listen to these politicians all the time. Who do we like so far?
Yeah, well, I haven't really been following that close. I know we got a candidate that's going to be talking for governor or something like the governor. The young guy, I had it posted on our page. He's going to be speaking in New London, June 22nd, I think it is.
Jonathan Wichmann? Is that his name?
I think that's right. I think you mentioned that before. I think that's who it is.
Okay.
And I'd be kind of interested to see. I think he's pro-gun. I think somebody even posted that he may be constitutional carry. So that's very strong. So he might be somebody to look at. And so
I'm kind of wary about some of these other people running. Kevin Nicholson, who's basically trying to run for any office at all, just to get elected. I've listened to that guy speak. I'm not impressed by him. I've heard his kind of rhetoric millions of times when I was in California and had to listen to politicians almost as on a daily basis because again I was involved with the Republican Party there. I met Rebecca Kleefisch about a week and a half ago at one of her get-togethers for the 1848 project, 1849 project, and she was okay, but she would, when somebody asked her about constitutional carry, she didn't commit either. Yeah. So again, that's why I'm looking. We got, nobody's really kind of gone full bore tossing their hat into the ring. That's why I'm trying to get a feel of this. Who do we like? Who can we count on?
I'm just kind of starting to look at different ones, but I've never been really that political. Yeah. Well, I was kind of political when they were trying to get rid of our senators. recall senators and Walker in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of swarmed over this little city of New London. 8,000 people is it about now, and all of a sudden they started bothering my mother, who was in her 80s. They kept coming to her door. She'd call me, and she said, "They're at my door again." And so I started going with my video camera and my motorcycle, and I chased them around town. and I videotaped them, and so I had like 8 different license plates from around the country. And I interviewed them and talked to them, and some of them I followed to the police station, and they wanted to be arrested for harassing them. I went to school with some of the officers, and he says, "Well, what do you do with them?" He's harassing me. He says he's doing the same thing you're doing. You're out in public. He says you're open game. So I made a little video of it.
Oh, that's funny.
Using the Beatles song, "Look at all the lonely people. Where do they all come from?" and at one of those points, I was talking to somebody from Minnesota, and the AFL-CIO guy come up behind me with his camera. He says, "Why are you doing this?" Right in New London. I said, "I'm from New London." I said, "What are you doing it for?" "For the people." That night, they shot my window out. Before, they knew where I was. They knew where I was, and they shot my window out. And I've left. They shot the outer pane. It lodged in the corner of the window. And so I've left it that way. It's kind of my badge. For that. Yeah. So
a bullet hole in my window. There you go.
Yeah. And I got the sheriff's department. Probably one of your grandkids did it with a pellet gun or something. And I found a bullet fragment in there. It had rifling on it. It was like a 38 or something like that, maybe.
Right.
So that's kind of where I really dug into the politics and stuff. But
well, yeah, it always seems like you have to. You don't have much of a choice, especially right now with way everything seems to be getting run into the ground. There was was an old saying. I don't remember who the name of it, that the person that it's attributed to, but they said, just because you're not interested in politics doesn't mean politics isn't interested in you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
This is the thing that bothers me, though, with having to have groups like the Second Amendment Preservation, and all of that, and having to have groups like NRA and Gun Owners of America and the Wisconsin gun owners and all of that, all of these groups having to go in and fight with their politicians just to protect something that is enshrined in the Bill of Rights.
That's correct.
Isn't that what our politicians are supposed to be doing?
Yeah, well, they take that oath. They all take the oath. To protect the Constitution. And then they all decide whether they want to protect that part of it or that part of it, this part of it.
Yeah.
And so they kind of pick and choose. But so don't take the oath if you're not willing to support that.
No, I've taken that oath. Not for Congress, but I took it when I was in the military, and I've tried to do everything my best to keep up with it. Yeah. And
Isn't there a group out there called the Oath Keepers?
I was a member of them for a while.
Okay, I just heard about it. Somebody mentioned it on the radio today. I listen to a lot of talk radio usually, but somebody mentioned the Oath Keepers, the police and military, ex-military and stuff.
Yeah,
are all have a lot of members there. But
I've met Stuart Rhodes. More than a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I joined up pretty shortly afterwards. But like I said, it just seems kind of, and it's not, these words are not going to come out correctly, but it just seems kind of infuriating that we have to have organizations out there just to preserve our constitutional rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, because that's what we are supposed to be electing politicians. The DC crowd, they've given up. I don't think that they follow any bit of the Constitution anymore.
No, that's not happening.
Yeah. And now you've got the this group out
It's
there.
what feels good. It's emotionally based. It's not
Yeah,
logically.
exactly.
It's not no logic. It's all emotionally based.
Oh, yeah, of course. But now, of course, there's a group out there called trying to put together an Article 5 convention of states.
Yeah,
Saying
yeah,
it's like, well, why are you going to add an amendment to the Constitution that they're not following anyway? It's not going to change anything.
yeah. And you know how it's going to end up. Because everybody will be invited to determine what you're going to have, and it'd just be watered down or something.
Well, I've talked to a few people who are real excited about a convention of states, and I explained it to them this way because I've had experience in this. I've been to some of the big Republican Party meetings, being a delegate, and I was on the platform committee and all of that. And this is what I guarantee is going to happen. Number one, there's going to be a bunch of globalist cronies that are going to be stuffed in there.
Yeah.
There's also going to put together the meeting, and they're going to say, okay, we're only going to stick to adding some amendments to the Constitution. Somebody's going to raise their hand and say, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules. Somebody's going to second it. They're going to agree on it. And then the entire Constitution is up for grabs. That's the scary part that these people don't seem to understand.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Well, I found that the sheriff I was telling you about is Sheriff Richard Mack.
Oh, yeah, Richard Mack.
Yeah.
I know who he is, yeah.
There's interviews out there with him, and I got one on my Facebook page, and it's very interesting to listen. That's where I learned a lot of stuff about the sheriff and the power he has. So.
Right. What was that one sheriff from Milwaukee that goes around?
David Clark.
David Clark. Oh, right.
Yeah.
David Clark. Okay.
Yeah, and like I say, we worked at some of his rallies, and which is really, to see that, it's really informing. What's out there and what we're up against. I feel sorry for the big cities, because here in Waupaca County, well, we did have it over in Waupaca there,
right?
But little towns are really not going to be affected that much, but we gotta work with one another, protect them.
Right. Well, it's gonna come to that anyway. I think at some point we're all gonna have to be very much in contact with our neighbors.
Yeah.
At some point, probably a lot more than what we are right now. Using whatever's possible. I mean, I wouldn't put my faith in social media so much because they've been shooting down. Like I said, I've been kicked off social media God knows how many times at this point.
Yeah. So it's gotta be an organized attempt. That's what I mean. We got to organize and figure out some way of communicating.
Right.
When somebody's got trouble, if you're dealing with the SRT, they got working on communications. They do a lot of teaching on communicating. So.
Right. So we got about a minute left.
Okay.
Do you go ahead and give out your group? Tell people where they can get a hold of you and the group, so if they want to join, they can.
Okay. It's Waupaca County's Second Amendment. Spell out the Second Amendment preservation. It's a private group, but there's a couple very simple questions. Answer them and you're in.
All right, so we're going to break. So David Myers, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it very much, and we will.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later at some point. I guarantee I'll be running into you somewhere.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good one.
Okay, bye.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.